Hi, I'm back. This time I'm gonna explain in English instead of Portuguese. Guys, when you choose an orchid, this is the most common one in Brazil, around the world, because you can have it at home. Remember, when you choose a plant, you need to make sure that the environment will be appropriate. Otherwise, you're gonna get frustrated. It will be hard to keep it healthy. My plants, I don't have them only when they're flowering. I tend to keep them and try to make them have flowers again. So they will always give me flowers if I offer them what they need. This one, it's hard for me to see because it has this paper, see? This paper doesn't make it easy. When we choose plants here, orchids, this orchid, you can see because it's transparent underneath, then you can see how bad or how good the roots are. But it's best if you can see it here as well. I was a risk taker, guys, but if you are not very secure in how to take care of orchids, please try to make sure the roots are healthy. The leaves need to be firm, okay? And if they're not up like this, it's because they're withered. They're not that healthy. But that's not the only thing. When you choose them, this one was the last one, but try to find some which have buds, but bigger buds, not very small, because if they keep moving around different environments, it was bought in somewhere, then a shop sold it for you, then it's going to your house. It doesn't like these changes. So when the buds are very small, they tend to die, okay? But with buds is the best because these flowers, especially when they grow from your house, they started the whole process with you when they're already healthy because they grew new roots, they grew new leaves, then they give you flowers. That's because they're in a perfect environment. They last for around 3 months, maybe a little more. And if it's healthy, if the plant is very healthy, the buds will always open again and again and again. You can even have flowers all year long, but new flowers will grow around 3 times a year if the environment is good. So let's start by removing this old soil. Why? Because here it's usually grown in a controlled space and they use this soil which rottens, okay? And if you leave it, it will start rotting and it will hold more and more water. It will never dry, and your plant needs to dry in around 2 days, okay? If it's always wet, the roots will rotten. So there are different materials which are used, but can you see that it's healthy here? It's green, that means it's watered. It's best if you water it before you start the process, and because you might hurt some roots, and if you water it and they didn't yet heal, it will rotten. Okay, the roots will rotten. So take it very carefully. These things, they stick to the roots because the roots stick to the walls, for example, wood. Be careful if you're gonna put it in a piece of wood. That's me. See, this is something you need to be careful with. Don't break the roots. You can have roots growing from the old roots, so more roots can grow through them, okay? And you can have new roots coming from here, from the rhizome. The rhizome is this part which holds the leaves and the roots, this part you cannot cover it with the soil, okay? Always leave it out. Be very gentle. Take your time, don't rush. This one was probably in the shop for around 2 weeks. There were so many which were newer with the big buds I spoke to you about, buds which are about to open. But I like the color. And even though I couldn't see the bottom, if it's very, very stuck and you risk breaking the roots, don't remove it. I've got one piece here which I'm not going to remove. If it's only one, it's okay. If your soil has materials which decompose, it becomes too acid and the orchid doesn't like. Here in Brazil, we have this sponge which is used to start the process of growing. Look what happens. It usually holds even more water than these little pieces here. And what happens is that, see? The roots die. They rotten. This sponge is the first thing you remove. Can you do this when you still have flowers? Yes, you can. You should, depending on how it was grown. Because look what happens. But it's okay. I've seen more roots, but it's healthy. You only water once they're not green like this anymore, okay? Please don't forget how much you water is very important. Orchids also like humidity in the air, proper sunlight. When you, I forgot what I was gonna say. It's okay. So this I can use for orchids which grow on the ground, not underneath soil, okay? The orchids which grow on the ground, they have only things which fall and then cover the roots. They don't grow under the soil. Now I'm going to check the size of the pot, which is, it has lots of holes. You can't see all of them because I covered them with these balls. These balls are good because you don't need to change the soil. I don't use those soils for orchids because they decompose and then it becomes acid and the roots will rot in. So these balls are expanded clay. This is clay, but it's not heavy as ordinary clay. You put it in the bottom. These are used for pots which are deeper because like this, it doesn't let the soil close the holes and the water doesn't stay there. That's a good thing about them, and it lasts forever. So the orchid needs to be firm, okay? Don't let it balance. For now, it won't be firm because I don't have what to hold it with. These sticks come with them. I'm going to put something in here just to hold it. So I'm going to put more expanded clay. Don't forget to check. Oh, you know what I didn't put here? That wasn't smart of me. Mothball. The mothball is excellent to prevent from little bugs who like to feed themselves from the roots to kill your plant because it stores water. These plants which store water attract them a lot, okay? It's, what's it called? The ones you find on the leaves and buds are cochineals. But by what I've checked, the ones on the roots are not cochineals in English. They are mealybugs. So they feed themselves from the roots. So I'm gonna put this, which is a mothball. Doesn't smell good, but it prevents that. It lasts for around 1 year. But it dissolves in around 3 months because of the water. But that doesn't mean its effect is gone. It's not. Then once the year is over, you just put it in far away from the roots, as deep as you can. So I put another layer just because I don't want it in contact with the root. Just for that, but it's not toxic if you don't keep touching it all day long. But if you don't like touching it, use your gloves for gardening. Now that it's a bit firmer, I can complete with more to hold it. See, 2 fingers distance, 2 fingers, 2 fingers, same thing at the bottom, or not even that, 2 fingers. My pot is not very deep. The deeper it can be is around like 15 centimeters. I don't know how much that is for you guys. 15 centimeters, maybe 8 fingers, 10 fingers, I'm not sure. That's how deep it is, maximum, okay? This one is not that deep. It's, I think, 12 or 13 centimeters deep, and wider is great. But have you seen the pot here? It must be 8 centimeters deep. No, maybe a bit more. 12 centimeters deep, and then they're not very wide. But after that, after 15, you can find them wider. At least here, I don't know there. It needs to dry out fast. This dries out fast, and if it's not deep, it dries out fast. If it's not too large, it dries out fast. The plant needs to dry out in around 2 days. To water it very much until the water comes out through the bottom, once a week. Then you water it again according to the roots, a bit less maybe. But if you have vapor in the area, but it's not too stuffy because of the sun, then it will be happy, but it needs sunlight. At least 1 or 2 hours, even 3, when the sunlight is not too strong, like early in the morning or already later in the afternoon. This species, okay, each orchid, each species has different needs, but they like humidity. But if you water it too much, which that doesn't mean humidity, it means watering. If you water it too much, the roots will rot. But if you don't water it, it won't give you new roots. And with that, it won't grow new leaves, and it won't grow the flowers without aborting the buds. So guys, I'm going to put around 2/3 of these. 1/3 can be as well. I knew I had forgotten something. You know what helps, what stimulates the roots to grow as well? I'll get it and show you. This one is too small. I forgot to get a bigger one. I use these medication things. See, I keep them. And if I need to know how much liquid I'm going to use, I use these. There's a larger one here, which helps me. It shows me quantity. I've got different types. A nail. It will rust with the water. It stimulates the seeds to grow. It needs to be rusty. Now that I've got enough of the expanded clay, I'll get charcoal, coal. I don't know which is the most appropriate word, but crushed. This also stimulates the plant to absorb more the nutrients you give them. Guys, it's important to give them nutrients. If you don't give them any nutrients, they might grow for like 1 year healthy, okay, because they had been given nutrients where they were grown. But then they won't be as healthy anymore if you don't give them any nutrients. They need the sunlight, of course, a lot of light. If it's not the direct sunlight, a lot of light. Direct sunlight is filtered. Okay, for example, here, watch a tour in the apartment. You'll see that I've got pots which are hanging, which filter the sunlight for orchids. I've got orchids which like more sunlight than this one. They're different species, okay? You don't need to cover all of the roots, as you can see. And if you cover the rhizome, it will die. Don't forget that. I don't know what fertilizers you've got there. Oh, and the sunlight, you need to go slowly, okay, if you don't know where it grew. Sometimes it didn't have direct sunlight. There are artificial lights which can help, but I don't know what you use there. I use sunlight. I just keep the place balanced for the plant, and I use other plants to help that. For example, for humidity, I hang orchids. They don't like being in contact with soil. So if you also have plants around, I put it here. If you have plants around, it's good if they're under, because then when you water them, the water evaporates, and then what happens is that it offers more humidity to the plants. But if you put it near a pot with soil, real soil, because this is not soil, but with soil, if it spills the soil on them, they might get sick from that soil. So avoid them on the ground. If you've got them on a higher spot, for example a table, it's good, but away from other plant soil. I guess I didn't forget anything. How much you're going to water varies. It varies according to how humid the place is, how cold it is, how dry it is, how hot, how cold, how dry, how humid. The place needs to be airy, okay? Because if it's not airy, you might get some little bugs feeding themselves on it. and it needs it, you know. Wind is good. For example, if it's outside, my orchids outside are super happy. They always have flowers. This same species, okay, and I put other pots in front to filter the sunlight, so it gets sunlight but it's filtered. Flowers last for longer if they don't get wet at all with water, fertilizers. If you're going to keep it inside, it's okay to keep it straight like this, but don't water this part here, because the center here, because if water stays there and it doesn't dry out, it will rot. So if you're going to put it outside, leave it sideways falling, okay, because then the water falls out. It doesn't stay. If you're leaving it at home, don't water the middle. If you're going to clean it with a soft paper, wet paper. That's it. Fertilizers. A hint here, when I prune, I will prune this plant if the leaves start withering. Only a little. If they're not standing like this, I know that it needs to put its energy to grow new roots and maintain the leaves up. The roots might dry out, some of them, but not all of them. See, they're exposed. You don't need to expose. I could have covered more, but it's because the vase is a bit shallow. I used my hands. I didn't need this. So once you prune it, you keep a little piece for it to hold, you know, the plant still, because it cannot keep balancing. It needs to be really firm. When you prune it, you can use this glue. You dry it well, the part which you cut. The type of glue which dries in 1 minute, you put a little bit, and it won't rotten at all. It will seal fast. You can also put cinnamon, which finished. I didn't put cinnamon, but when I'm dealing with orchids, before I plant them, I simply put cinnamon on all of the roots, a lot, because it helps seal the cut, it prevents it from getting sick even, you know, and it's a fertilizer. So always have powdered cinnamon. Another hint, something you can find at home, especially in the US. I don't like cinnamon. I only use it for plants. And gingerbread man. This one is a fertilizer just to offer all of the nutrients in a balanced way. These little balls last for 3 months if you water it every day, but it can last up to 5 months. I use it until it becomes wider with water inside, and then it pops. When it pops, you need to substitute it. You need to put more. I usually put 3 little balls of it. Sorry, 30 or more. It can go against the roots, no problems. It doesn't burn them. Guys, I also use bokashi. I don't know if you have it there, and I forgot the spoon, but it's a coffee spoon, but not very full, but then far away from the roots because it can burn the roots. You can put it in a small pot which you put in on top, but I don't have it anymore. Or these it has the same thing. It has nutrients, but more natural, balanced nutrients. Try to find, if you don't have these, try to find one for that, specific for orchids. Okay, don't start inventing other products, because orchids like stuff for orchids. Like this one is for flowering. If you water it only a few times a week, like once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week, once a month for flowering, then once a month If you use another fertilizer, which is not any of these which I showed you, with balanced nutrients, just for it to grow roots, to grow leaves. If you put too much of that, you will have less flowers. So balance, always balance, okay? So once a month the other one, after 15 days, this one. This one I put once a month if I water more frequently. So when it's hot, so you need to check the environment. But I might use it sometimes for 2 months, for example, and then I water it this month, I skip a month. Vitamin B, B for ball, you have it liquid without any flavor. This one is for birds. It's excellent. 10 drops for 1 liter. This helps plants which are dehydrated, which have very little roots. It stimulates the roots to grow, but once it's grown and healthy with leaves, don't use it anymore. Because, for example, I sometimes order them online. They come and they are dehydrated when they arrive. So that's what I use when they arrive. If you're going to dip a plant inside, it can stay like that up to 2 hours. That's it. But after 2 hours, no more effect. Okay, so you need to use it. And when you prune, you can use cinnamon or that glue which dries out fast. When you prune and you're going to prune another plant, please always clean very well your tools with alcohol, at least 70%. Okay, at least or more. I believe I didn't forget anything. I hope you'll ask me questions if you need. Don't forget to check if your environment is balanced. That's the trick for it to survive for many years. And the soil, I'm going to show you now what I've used, how I've used. So these little balls, you might have something there, an equivalent. And those are my roots. They're watered because they're green. Once they are grayish, you water. And one hint, if it has very few roots, try to water in between, but check if the soil, get a stick, check if the soil is dry as well. That's very important before you water again. But in between, you can water only a few roots to give more humidity if the area is not humid enough. If you need it to grow more roots and even leaves, then you work with the humidity for it to happen. Okay, that's it for now. Bye guys. Please like the video, subscribe, make comments, and send the video to your friends so they can learn more about the plants I grow. And they can relax it, because for me it's relaxing. It's therapy.